Welcome back. Let's check in now with Macy Marigi for a look at what's coming up in our next half hour on Closer Look. Hey, Macy.
Hey, Robert. Well, it's now day 10 of protests in Ferguson, Missouri, after the police-involved shooting that left a young black man dead. We'll talk to an expert. This most recent incident and the subsequent outcry through protests begs the questions, why do we see these events in Ferguson through race-colored glasses? Well, joining me now is diversity and sensitivity expert Royalyn Reid. Royalyn, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Macy. Glad to be with you today.
So, Royalyn, why do we see these events as little more than racially fueled murder?
Well, you know, Macy, we still have to look at it, and the pattern continues. We've seen that with Trayvon Martin and other things over time. So we have to face the fact that there is still something in there that is very sensitive to people, and unfortunately a lot of times we still see it polarized across racial lines.
Right. Well, you know, I've been filling in at a radio station this week since the conflict began actually last week, and we've talked at length about this with our listeners, so I've heard all sides of the argument, yet we still don't have all the facts about what really happened when Michael Brown was shot by a police officer. So why do people jump to the conclusion that this only happened because Brown was an innocent black man?
And I think, too, is, you know, when we even just look at, you know, diversity and sensitivity, there is still so much that I mentioned before that tends to be polarized by race, that is shaped by our backgrounds, our past experiences. And so there's still a lot of things that are there that just have not been dealt with or settled. And we see that in our history over the past 30, 40 years, it has been a different plight, especially among African Americans and Caucasians. So that's where we really see that coming. And even in the polls and research, we just see that plain view of how people perceive that and what could potentially be happening.
Okay. And why do people react so aggressively and, you know, rioting and, you know, all the violence that they responded with?
And we have to look at it, too, and a lot of times, as you mentioned, too, is it's so important to get the facts, because who is it? Who is it that's rioting, and how many, how widespread is that? And also, too, is that the majority? But we know for sure there's hurt and there's emotion. We also know people get on the bandwagon, and even sometimes those who might even be rioting might just be doing something. We just really don't know all of those facts. But regardless of, you know, those that are carrying on or those that are peacefully demonstrating, there's just these emotions that are going on, and just saying what's going on that needs to be addressed and talked about and dealt with.
Absolutely. Now, do you think we've become more or less racially tolerant in the last few years?
You know, based on what we're seeing, as you said, just with the facts, it looks like we still have something that we haven't dealt with as a country. And the reason I say that is because this same issue comes up again and over again, such as, you know, last year with the Trayvon Martin. There's the same kind of thing we saw back with the O.J. Simpson days.
Right.
We know how far ago that was. So I think we just have to take a look at it, and we've come a long ways, but it's clear that we still have a lot of things we have to deal with, and we have not arrived for whatever reason.
Absolutely. Now, many are drawing the correlations of current events to similar riots in the past, such as in L.A. Do you think that we're in similar political climate compared to those situations?
I think that's a hard jump to make, because we know that things are happening. But even just looking at some of it, I don't think we can really truly make that comparison without really looking at it laid out, and it appears that some of those facts may be a little different.
Right. Well, Royalyn, we're coming up on a break, but I really appreciate you being here today, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Glad to be with you, Macy. Thank you.
Coming up later on The Closer Look, if you plan on driving this Labor Day holiday, you'll want to avoid drinking and vice versa. Our transportation expert is here to tell you about the anti-drinking and driving campaign. But first, Governor Rick Perry turns himself in at an Austin courthouse, which has West Texans talking. When we return, we'll take a closer look at what people here at home think about this situation.